All right, we're back for our weekly podcast. So we had talked today about discussing just navigating the holidays. So that's with nutrition, training. We'll dive into all kinds of stuff. So we haven't really talked any about this before jumping into the podcast, but I know you had some things on your mind. I'll let you kind of kick it off and jump right in.
So I think, the biggest piece I wanted to talk about was just like how to manage all your social events and your calendar. So that's where I feel like people kind of get out of rhythm, out of whack with their training, with nutrition, even just with sleep, where you're trying to, if you can, take a look at the next 2 months and space things out as much as possible so you're not feeling overwhelmed.
So how do you mean, like, space out your social?
So, for example, like when planning the holidays with our family. So, we have our annual Christmas party, which we hope you guys can all come to Friday, December 16th. And I knew I didn't want to do my parents' Christmas the next day. That's going to put me in a bad position where I'm either like going to skip a workout or just feel horrible and not make good decisions with taking care of myself, and then just kind of set me up for the week where I feel pretty crappy. So I just put a day spacer between like the Christmas party and my family's get together. Now, some of these things you don't have control over, but most of them you do. So just even get-togethers with family, friends, if you can space those out and not stack up like 3-4 events right in a row, that's where I see a lot of people get out of rhythm where, they'll miss weeks of training or just not taking care of themselves.
If you create like a bender effect with the multiple parties and then, then you feel so bad you don't want to get back to like having one night out and then kind of suffering through a day at the gym isn't as bad as coming back from multiple drinking and eating days and sitting around and all that kind of stuff.
And you're just waiting for the new year, and then you'll get it together then.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think it's hard, and everyone's going to run into some of those days, especially if you're traveling. Like I talk to the people in our classes all the time, and they're a lot, if not half, of the members at some point, whether it's for Thanksgiving or Christmas, they're going to go ahead and head out of town for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. They're going to be maybe back in their parents' house or somewhere where they're going to be drinking alcohol and eating off of what isn't a typical diet or plan for them, and maybe not working out at all. And that's something that a lot of you guys are going to run into and navigating that. I talked to you the other day. The big thing in not doing that is trying to punish yourself when you get back and picking a marathon workout or doing something, taking something on that's maybe going to be like your hardest workout of the week when you feel good and you're in a rhythm. That's a really poor day to do that. So what I always tell people is just try to get the ball rolling back down the hill. Just try and get your momentum back. If that means taking a class, you're someone who maybe typically, does the workout RX or prescribed, and maybe you're even someone who's the best person in a lot of classes that you take, or one of the people leading the pack and doing it. It might mean scaling that workout down a lot, where you're using 95 instead of 135 on the cleans, and you're going to accept not finishing first, and you're not going to crush yourself and like rolling around on the ground hurting after the workout. You're just trying to get moving and get some momentum going. And I didn't figure that out until, I would say, and I'll still like try and jump into something that's over my head. But I remember it was 2017, which for a lot of you guys, most of you guys might not have even been training CrossFit that long. But for me, that seems like very recent in the span of my CrossFit training career. That's about 15 years. I remember going to a bachelor party with some buddies in New Orleans, and it was like a particularly like I was in great shape going into it, and we hit it super hard for like 3 straight days. And I remember
getting pictures of your ankles.
Yeah.
They were swollen like 3 times the size, and you could barely get your shoes on.
Yeah. So like from salt and eating just, food on the run and drinking a lot for 3 days. But when I got back, I remember it was Monday. I'd get my flight lands in the evening. I unpack a suitcase, toss stuff in the laundry, pass out, get up, go straight into work. And I took class, but I remember just cruising it and not going hard, scaling the weight, and felt good, felt clear. It just kind of cleared my head. And then Tuesday, the next day, I went a little harder. By Wednesday, I was fine. I was right back to going 110%. If I would have hit that workout Monday, 100 miles an hour, it would have mentally broke me. And then physically, I could have got hurt. I might have cramped up.
That's where I always see people take, like, they'll do that one day, like a crazy big training day, or even hit like, okay, I'm going to hit CrossFit, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit Rev. And then I don't see those people for like 3 or 4 more days. Yep. Because they're like almost like binging with their workouts.
Yeah.
And then they're like binging on the weekends, like food and alcohol. So it kind of just promotes that effect.
You can't make up for it with an extra long workout. Isn't going to benefit you in any way more. It's what's gonna get you back on track is getting back on track. It's getting back into some consistency as quickly as possible. You take 2-3 days off. If you can get back into the gym 5 days the next week, and you build back, by the end of that week, you're right back where you were at. If you hammer that first day hard, I think you're more than likely by the end of that week going to be set back, possibly injured, or even things that we're talking about, like from like an adrenal fatigue standpoint, like hormonally you'll be off. Like your body isn't primed and set to perform that way. Even just jumping, like, if you love the classes, which I do, and I'll jump in and go light on a class, that might not even be the answer. The answer for a lot of us, it might be going over on the barbell side and cruising out like a 5K row, or hopping on a bike for like 45 minutes and turning like a TV show on YouTube or something, and just moving, hitting some sit-ups, stretching. And then that's your first day back, and then you get into a WOD.
We just went out of town for the weekend. Miami, it was a big, like, fun party weekend. Mm-hmm. We came back. That's exactly what both of us did. I went to barbell and just did a workout by myself with Lexi. We're like, today is not a good day to max out. We're going to hurt ourselves.
The total, yeah.
Where you had your boxing.
I did a boxing lesson.
Yeah, yep. So I think, it's we've learned to do that a little bit, and those are always kind of, I'm not good at taking a class and cruising it. I'm doing better, but I still have a really hard time. I almost need to separate myself, like coming back from both kids. I needed to kind of do my own thing for a little while and then step back into class. But the point you were making about like coming in, doing a hard workout, like how that might lead to adrenal fatigue, or it's not going to get you ahead, just reminds me a lot of like my fitness show days where it's all about the diet, and then workouts are there, but we would always have girls that I was competing with that would always try to out-exercise their diet. So they started picking at food, they started eating extra, and then you would see them on the step mill for like an hour, 2 hours. And I remember my coach at the time, Mike Davies, he was always yelling at them like that is never going to make up for it. And it's so true. You really cannot outwork a bad diet. You can't outwork that big meal. You just literally have to say, okay, that was one day, maybe I overdid it. And then I used to go extreme on the other side of that and really restrict my diet. That doesn't work either. Your body just starts to fight you if you do anything extreme when it doesn't feel well. So I think, that's also the theory of like all these conversations we're having is following like what you feel is probably a little bit of what you should do if you're already someone that's in shape. So if you feel pretty crappy and like, oh, I just don't feel awesome, that's not a time to like push your body to the limit. that's a time to kind of like ease into it. Then if you start to feel better, you can start to push harder within the workout, but really just letting your body be the guide of that. Still moving, but letting your body be the guide.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I think with the holidays too, I think everyone should really enjoy them, like go out, enjoy them. But if you look at it from a standpoint, I think some people, I've never really been like this, so I'm not like someone who on Thanksgiving destroys themselves.
I am.
Yeah. But I don't like go, like it's a meal and like I want to eat dinner and everyone's like, why would you want to eat dinner? Like I'll talk to people. I'm like, all right, are we going to eat again? Because I ate like a regular amount of food and like 4 or 5 hours hungry. I'm used to eating every few hours. I'm hungry again and I want to eat and I don't necessarily want to eat, turkey and mashed potatoes again. And so it's funny, like we'll always laugh all like way after Thanksgiving. It'll be it'll be a light day for me. I just some of it might just be from the standpoint like I don't love
enjoy that food.
It's all right, like it's fine, but it's not. I don't get like stoked about turkey and dressing and mashed potatoes and Thanksgiving food. It's just not like that. Doesn't get me. I like other stuff, but.
I think that's a good point because I'm like, every year around this time, all my nutrition clients are really worried, like, well, what do we do about Thanksgiving? In all honesty, it's one meal. You have one plate of food, have whatever you want. You don't need to do dieted down mashed potatoes or dieted down stuffing. And I did that for years. Like every year, my family would come over to my house and be like, okay, what weird stuff did you put in this to make it all like skinny? And the ironic thing is I make everything with like real butter and real salt and all the real stuff now. It tastes better and I just have less. Yep. Where I used to gain much more weight because I would overeat on everything like it didn't matter. So I think, have what you enjoy, have one plate of it, whatever that is, and then be done with that meal. But, I think and I grew up overeating and it's kind of like what's ingrained in you. But every meal was not just a meal. It was like the meal and then eating a ton of desserts was almost like another meal. And then you go back to the leftovers and that was like the third celebration. And then by the end of the night, I couldn't move and really just felt pretty crappy.
I think there's a really big difference, at least from where I'm sitting. And a lot of people have a different, I'm talking about how I've always felt about these events too, not even when I pre-fitness, but you don't have to. I think a lot of people growing up, or they get a mentality that they almost need to, like, I need and deserve this time to be extremely gluttonous. Mm-hmm. Where if you actually you ate to satiety, like you're good, like you're full enough. You have a couple beers or a couple drinks or a glass of wine and you feel good. And then you don't go back to where you're just kind of like, I'll see people go back for like their third piece of pie. Like, does that feel good? Like,
no, you actually asked me that one year. I think it was at Thanksgiving.
It's like you're like competing with like what you can like stuff into your body and if you really think about it, if you celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas, even multiple Christmas meals, say 2 or 3, in 6 weeks, that's what? At the most, like 4 or 5 meals that you're eating for those holidays. And it's really more realistically probably like 3.
Yeah.
Or 4. I mean, depends. Some people do it with different families. We're going to go to your family, work 5 meals over 6 weeks, maybe, where you're like doing the whole spread.
Yeah.
That probably shouldn't cause a 20-pound weight gain, five meals that are off. And I'm not saying like we're on diets. Like I don't eat a diet. Like I'm not on a specific like meal plan with macros or anything like that. I'm not training for anything except to be fit and healthy. Yeah, you're not either.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying, it's like, it's a it's a meal where you're going to eat more than you typically do, or you're going to eat foods that are like less than ideal or optimal for fueling your day-to-day lifestyle. But again, I don't feel like 5 meals should do that. I think what they generally do is create benders.
Right.
So
I think,
as you get on like a sugar bender and you just start eating it's like
a hangover.
What do they call it with people who do like cocaine? You're chasing the, what is it? I don't know.
The high?
Chasing the rabbit. I don't know, but.
Like as soon as you start to come down off that sugar crash, you just like want another. You want
something like that. Yeah.
Because I remember being, for some reason, this is bringing up this memory, when I was in 6th grade and my whole family knew I loved desserts. So we had 4 different desserts and they're like, Kate, which one are you going to have? I'm like, you guys know I'm going to have one of each. And they all kind of laughed because I just remember always doing that. That's just like what I did. And that a lot of it's just like, when we sit down with my family, that's just kind of the culture that's what they do. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't think I enjoy food any less. I think I actually enjoy it much more because I feel good. And then I don't have this anxiety around these holidays because I know I can go and I'm like, okay, if there's a dessert there I like, I'm going to have that. I'm going to have like one of each thing. And then I'm going to be done. Now, I kind of have to make that conscious decision. I'm having one plate and I'm having one dessert. So I don't just get carried away and start snacking at things, but I'm fine with that. And usually if I carry around a drink, that kind of helps me not keep going back to the food. So if you're kind of like a person that likes to pick around at food a lot, which that's just such an ingrained habit in me, it's really helpful to walk around with like a glass of wine or a drink that I'm sipping on to keep me from going back and like grabbing at the snacky stuff that's out or just picking at leftovers. But it's not I guess what we're trying to say, it's not that meal. It's going back. It's being gluttonous, having more, and just kind of giving yourself the pass that this isn't like real life. This is like Thanksgiving, so it doesn't matter, or Christmas, so it doesn't matter. But it's stringing together multiple days and not having any plan if you've got to go back to work the next day, like when you're going to work out. And just kind of being disciplined, like, okay, I still need to go to bed on time so I feel good. Mm-hmm. And I see it all starting with more of like from a scheduling standpoint. That's where I always see the breakdown, whether it's getting to bed on time, waking up on time, stringing too many events together, not really paying attention so you're not organized. Your thoughts aren't organized. And I think that's where people get overwhelmed. And then they just say, F it. Like, F it. I don't need to do this. I don't need to try. This is too much. It's overwhelming. And it's really just being more thoughtful in your planning. And I was just having a conversation with one of my clients about this the other day because he's really going back to work, traveling so much more. And just even his training week being more intentional. So he'll come in here, maybe 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, and then miss 2 or 3 days on the road. I'm like, well, that's actually what's killing you right now. Like your diet, you're good. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's being strategic with your workouts while you're away. And this guy's a runner, but he really needs to get in some form of weight training, like even hitting his hotel gym up. And I'm trying to encourage him to be on some sort of program where like, that's where I like to lean on our edge, where he really needs to work his back more, find a couple back workouts to do, pair that in with like a body weight conditioning workout in having that all set Sunday for the next week. Mm-hmm. And that's something we both do too. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Like we have an idea of what we're going to do for the whole week on Sunday. And I think we both start thinking about it. It's not something we're like, okay, what is your training plan for the week? And we have it all written out. But it's just something we're starting to think about. Like this week,
what are we doing for Thanksgiving for our workout?
And we're already talking about
we're going to work out in that
week.
class and then do an hour work afterwards.
Yeah. So it's just being strategic. So like this week, hot for the holidays is a rowing workout. So I was just texting, Lexi's my workout partner. So I was just texting with her like, hey, let's hit some weights tomorrow. We'll have the rowing workout Friday. And then Saturday, we're going to do that hero watt. It's going to be pretty heavy. So let's save our shoulders because those are heavy clean and jerks. Let's save our arms a little bit and our back a little for pull-ups and push-ups. So, just being like, because we have rounds of Cindy and clean and jerks. So just being strategic about, especially if you're working out on your own and then you're throwing in some CrossFit, like we both do, being strategic with those days where, you don't want to like completely burn out a muscle group and not pay any attention to like, if you're working out on Thursday, what the workout is Friday. And that's also where I see a lot of injuries come from, is just not having a strategy, just randomly working out, which I used to do all the time. But I was always battling plantar fasciitis or this or that, or like a bursitis here. And I even like when I'm starting to get in better running shape, I'm strategic with how I space that out and look at like, okay, are we doing double under? If we're doing it like next week, I think we have a lot of double unders 2 days, but they're spaced out like 5 days where, I'm probably not going to do a real hard running day after that first day we have 230 double unders. Just minimizing that impact and being strategic. And that kind of goes along with this whole, we're talking about the holidays, but just being strategic in general. So if you're going to go back home, think about what you can do at your parents' house. Everybody can do burpees. Everybody can hit the ground and stand up 100 times. Takes less than 10 minutes. You're not going to mess with anyone's plans that day if you don't feel like running outside. You really don't need to take 3 or 4 days off, and that just kind of like goes into like a whole like, I feel crappy, I'm just going to go through the holidays maintaining this. I would just really encourage everyone to like get up and move. Even if it's band stuff, you can take bands, and I'll give my clients some like band workouts to do in the hotel rooms, or that sort of thing, which I think we still do have those on like Edge too, if people need some inspiration. But that's something you don't need any room to do. And it's really great to like just even work like, if you're kind of hunched over, like I notice like if I'm at like a family's house for an extended period of time, or like just in celebrations, like the middle of my back will hurt. And so like even just like doing a lot of like rear delt, lower trap work, and really just almost kind of like just getting your body loosened up so you feel good. And a lot of my older clients, I kind of lean them towards that than extra cardio. But I kind of come from an era.
Pump work.
Yeah, like where everyone
I like
just,
to do that, actually.
Yeah.
Everyone's like on days where they don't feel good, they lean on cardio, and I'm like, I personally really like to do very moderate to light loads at higher reps of like bodybuilding work.
No, and I do too.
Lots of lat pull downs, leg presses, stuff that's easy to get into, that's not uncomfortable.
And I used to be all cardio, but I think the reason why we all are, it's no secret, you're looking at like, I'm burning this amount of calories. Sure. Where if you ever look at like, I used to wear a heart rate monitor every time I did some like old school bodybuilding workout. And it was the most depressing thing. I would like go wreck my legs for an hour and burn 150 calories. But that's always when I was the leanest. Like when I'm usually the leanest, I just kind of lean more on that weight training, less on that conditioning.
So I have a funny story from your bodybuilding days, and it was a overheard conversation that I heard that was behind me that has stuck with me this was almost 10 years ago. And I don't even know if I really told you about it, but so there's this guy he was a guy who was pretty overweight, and he was talking to a couple behind me that were like, they coached people on bodybuilding and nutrition. And they were like from like a small town. And you could just tell like, this guy had never worked out. This guy's older, and he's really overweight. He's probably over 300 pounds. But he's like seeing this bodybuilding stuff, and he wants to get into it and try it. And apparently, just to dive into this conversation, he was like a top archer. Like he did bow and arrow competitions and was a hunter or something. So these guys were going to swap services. He was going to give him archery lessons. And it's funny. I can remember weird things that like down to the smallest detail from a long time ago. But I remember probably because I was bored out of my mind at this bodybuilding show,
so
watching
exciting.
these. Yeah, I'm listening to these guys, overhearing their conversation, and so the guy who's the nutrition and he's more of the bodybuilding programming coach, and his wife's like the nutrition, similar to like our setup. But what they said really stuck with me, and I do. There's a lot to this. So the wife started diving in on like, okay, so here's what you're going to need to do, and it was talking about the this diet that talking about the foods they were going to eat, talking about how much water he was going to drink, and training and working out, and generally, and this I think this really applies to like the holidays. She's like, you need to think in terms of getting your body to constantly be moving blood and flushing. And especially looking at this guy, like in my head, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you need to, like, he's got some stuff stuck in there. But I think that happens to us during the holidays. If we're sitting on our ass and we are eating and drinking gluttonously and, you know, salt and all this stuff, it's just like you're swelling up. And it got me thinking, she's like, you need to be, you know, working out and doing this and moving blood on these days and this often. You need to be drinking this water. You need to be thinking about getting your body to constantly be flushing. That's what's going to get this weight off you. It's what's going to get you leaner. Something about now, I'm not doing it justice. What she was telling the guy was phenomenal advice. And I wrapped my head, like it computed in my brain, like, ooh, she's not wrong. And for some reason, we're just talking now, and that conversation like rang right up in my head. And I'm like, when we're sitting around during these holidays, we're at friends and family are coming into town. You know, the day before Thanksgiving is always the big like drinking day, and like all the buddies we used to always like when we were in college and after, like everyone would come into town and we'd go hit the bar and have a good time. It was the day. It was like a big class reunion almost. But those are the times you want to think in terms of, okay, I had that bad meal, those poor drink choices. Now I got to get it flushing. I'm drinking water. I'm starting to eat healthy to counterbalance it. And now I'm going to move. Again, it might not be for a training stimulus. You're not trying to like necessarily.
Even just going outside for a walk.
100%.
Like even like after a meal, that always helps me. Like at my parents' house, we're out on the farm. I'll be
10-minute
hey,
walks, yeah.
Dad, will you go out on a walk with me? Let's throw on a coat.
Yep.
We can have a chat. And it just makes you feel so much better, where if I'm just sitting in front of food, it's really hard for me not to be like, you know, it's just like something for me to do where I can just like walk.
At that seminar, that's what that Stan Efferding was talking about on the vertical diet. He does what? I don't know. It's like 4 to maybe half a dozen 10-minute walks throughout a day, and they're just scheduled, and they're typically after his meals. So it helps digestion, it helps move blood. Now this guy that we're talking about is he's a huge bodybuilder and power lifter, a guy who's like extremely big, like, you know.
I swear CPAP to sleep. So big.
Yeah, and he's, you know, breaking world records on lifts and stuff, but he's really lean and ripped, and you see him and it's like, this is a dude who knows what he's doing with nutrition and diet. He is like extremely like jacked and ripped, and but he can't run, or he couldn't do like CrossFit workouts. His body's not built to do that. So what he does is he goes on these frequent walks for 10 minutes, but it keeps everything moving and flushing.
Right. And I think just as CrossFitters, like we tend to think like, okay, if this isn't like killing me, it's worthless. Like, and I mean, that's part of what we really want to try to get across in all these podcasts is like, you need that balance in your life, these lower intensity days. You need to really wrap your head around longevity, even if it's doing CrossFit workouts, but in a lower intensity way. If you're coming in 6 days a week and in your 40s, you're going to tear your joints apart one by one if you go all out 6 days a week. Unless you're on the juice, then maybe your body can handle it.
Sure.
So, you know, and just kind of like, and for me too, like, you know, we were in Miami this weekend, had a blast. We stayed up super late until like Sunday morning watching Tiesto. It was so much fun. And I was going to get up and I was going to do a run, and then I was going to do yoga on the beach. And I woke up and I'm like, my legs hurt so bad. Like I did this really hard workout yesterday, and we just did like Soul Cycle with my friend Leah, and then danced. I just danced for like 4 hours. And I thought, you know what? The best thing I'm just trying to feel now, what is the best thing for my body? I'm like, I'm going to get up. I'm going to drink water, drink coffee, but I just need to not have any huge meals today. And so I just started drinking a ton of water, and I met you guys at brunch. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have a coffee because I could just feel like that's going to put me over the edge. Mm-hmm. And I've had those weekends that are super fun where I know like, okay, today's the day to face the pain, but I just don't do it. And in facing the pain usually means like not eating any crappy food, not drinking any alcohol, but you got to at some point. So like that was my day, and I just kept drinking water and just kept feeling a little better, where like, you know, even by today I feel pretty good, where I'm coming back so much faster. I guess my point is through being moderate than fighting my body. Like even 5 years ago, I would have been like, nope, you said you're going to work out today. This is your 6th day this week. You have to get in 6 days. You're going to wake up. You're going to make yourself run. And I know what that feels like because I did it in Chicago when we walked a ton and danced a ton and my knee was killing me like 2 minutes in. And I made myself still go for the allotted time that I said I was going to. And I paid debts on that for the next month probably. And then that next day, forced myself to do something again, but then had this huge brunch. Was a ton of fun, but I didn't need to eat, a whole plate of nachos and have 3 or 4 more drinks. It was probably time for me to like face the pain. I could have gone shopping or done something else fun. So just finding like another way, like when you feel crappy, finding another way to self-soothe instead of the thing that got you there. And, and that's hard to kind of break out of where like you just need to move that energy and to do the same thing. Yes, it satisfies like your pain for a minute, but ultimately it just makes it worse and it punts it back. So you can move that energy by just going for a walk, by doing yoga, by doing even breath work. But really trying to feel like how to break through that the fastest. And it's usually not by being extreme, but just trying to change your energy situation there.
Yeah. You don't want to put yourself in a tough spot where you have to work back too far. So I think really summing this up is trying to get everyone to think in the way of just don't get too far off the path. If you don't have to stray too far off the path. I don't think it's healthy to not go partake in doing things that make you happy. If you are going to be sad because you didn't eat these foods with your family and it's like creates some awkward feelings and you didn't have a couple drinks with your buddies or whatever it is, like don't do that. Like go do that, especially if you're a lifestyle athlete and if you're training to be a CrossFit Games athlete. This podcast doesn't really apply to you. You probably should just not be doing a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
Just don't live life for the next 2 years and you're on your way.
You gotta dial it in. But if you're doing this to enhance your life and lifestyle, like go live your life and go live your lifestyle, the one that you want to live. Just don't let it go off the rails, because going all the way off the rails and coming all the way back on, it can be really challenging for people, especially if they keep having to do it. Like you can only go to that well so many times where you're like, all right, I got to get back on track until like
it's mentally draining.
Yeah, until you eventually just stay off track. And I've seen it happen time and time again where it's just like people keep going off track and, you'll see them for a week and a half and then they're gone for 3 weeks. And it's like, it feels like they're starting over that first 2 workouts and you don't want to go through that process over and over again where it's like you have a couple days where you're out of the gym and you're not doing anything. You come back and you hit it and it's not too painful. It's physical and mental. Like get a day in that's not going to kill you and then do a little more the next day. By that 3rd day, you're pretty much back and rocking and rolling if you haven't taken too much time. Now, the longer your time off, the more that easy workout and scaling this and that needs to be. And that's where it can be hard for me. Like if I take an injury or I get sick or something happens and I've taken even a week off, like we don't take time off, like just completely draining. But if I take like a full week off, like there's been times in the last few years where it's been like close to a week off of, class training, like that kind of intensity of training. It's tough. Like that for those first few days, like they don't feel good. Like your strength is not there and you have to wake everything back up. Your cardio is half of what it was after a week. It's like, wow, I got to really kind of get back going. If you don't get too far away from it and you keep touching things in a way that doesn't just destroy you and make it the worst thing in the world, these holidays will not be as detrimental on your fitness. as maybe they have been in the past. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier January 1 to start burning off 10 pounds of weight you want to get off by March or April for shorts and swimsuits than 30,
Right.
you know?
Right. And, just a couple things I want to leave you guys with too. Just giving yourself confidence. Like if you are someone like me that tends to like really like go buck wild at a meal or just overdo it, give yourself confidence that you can do it. Like use this to prove to yourself, like try with Thanksgiving next week and say, all right, I'm going to have one plate of food. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy what I want. I'm not going to say I can only have turkey and vegetables and everything else is gross. Like it's not. We just say that it's gross because it has more calories and it's super yummy and hard to stop. But enjoy those things because then it's not going to be too long before you just binge on other random food by yourself at home. That's super freaking sad. When you could actually enjoy that meal with your family. And I know I've come from that lifestyle where I literally would not participate in a lot of holidays because I was getting ready for a show or this or that, and then I just ended up binging by myself at home.
And you're in the
a week
refrigerator
later.
eating shredded cheese like a
Yeah,
goblin
it's
at 2 in the
sad.
morning.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not even food that I would like. And I mean, I usually end up with a peanut butter and a spoon and chocolate chips if I have it. But I've done really sad stuff before. It kind of reminds me of like Oprah Winfrey when she was dieting. I remember she said once she broke her diet on like a frozen loaf of bread that she defrosted and poured maple syrup on it. And I was like, at the time I was so young, I was like, oh, it's so disgusting. And then I can't remember what I did years later doing shows. But I was like, I am like,
It was something
it was something like equivalent, maybe even worse. That was just like, oh, I remember what it was.
It's like the lamest thing you could eat.
It was granola bars with goat cheese spread on it. I had hit a new low.
All right, we're going to leave you guys with that.
But hold on.
Go
I
ahead.
do have a couple more tips. So like actionable things that people can do. So if you do have any control over like meals and this sort of thing, so I just kind of like to give some like actionable items. First of all, pack snacks with you when you're traveling. Like whether you're on a plane or you're in a car or whatever, like my glove compartment's already stocked now for like the holidays. So bars don't go bad. Quest chips don't go bad. Like turkey jerky or beef jerky. Apples travel easily, so plane, car, whatever. Make sure you're eating every 2.5 to 3.5 hours so you don't get super ravenous and want to overeat. And then lastly, have your last meal early. If you can cut off food by I say like 5 if you can. I know it's super early. I'm always doing like senior dinner, but like 6, that makes such a huge difference than like if you're eating at 8:30. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that sort of thing.
Cool.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
See you guys next time.